up, everyone? This is DR with thewowbreakdown 101, and do I have a treat for you? I'm starting a new series, and there are going to be a lot of pissed off people, as some of those rose-tinted glasses are going to be smacketh off your fucking faces. What am I talking about, well, you may ask? That's simple. This series is Raid Battles of World of Warcraft history, and I'm going to pit some of the toughest bosses from each expansion against each other to decide which boss was actually the toughest boss during content. So, who actually is going to come out on top? Will those vanilla raiding prove to be the pinnacle of raid difficulty, or will BC reign supreme in all things, including toughest raid bosses? Will all those Wrath, Baby, and current raiding bosses prove to be the paperweight, loot-dropping pushovers that so many claim the newer raid bosses to be? Well, this is how we're going to find out, my friends. Each battle will be a 7-round fight to judge the winner. In the first round, we're going to go over the strats to down the boss, and determine which strat was the hardest to determine the winner of that round. Round 2 will be the individual damage abilities that the bosses does, and whichever boss individual damage ability poses the most threat will win in that round. In the third round, the raid-wide damage abilities that pose the largest threat to killing your raid. The fourth round will be whichever boss was harder on the DPS row. Fifth round, whichever boss was harder on the tank row. Round 6 will go to whichever boss was harder on the heals row. The seventh and final round will be which boss mechanics was the most difficult for raids to learn and get their heads around. At the end of the fight, the boss with the most rounds will be declared the winner. Okay, without further ado, the first battle is going to be between two titans of a boss that has some of my favorite lore behind them. I have linked the lore video to these bosses if you want to check out the lore on Noble's channel. Coming in the vanilla corner, standing at a towering height, weighing a mega shit ton, and truly a hot mess, is the very first in-game boss in World of Warcraft history, Vanilla Ragnaros.
Was ancient when this world was young. Bow before him, mortals. Bow before him. Too soon. You have awakened me too soon, Executors. What is the meaning of this intrusion? These mortal infidels, my lord. They have invaded your sanctum and seek to steal your secrets. You allow these insects to run rampant through the hallowed core. Now you lead them to my very lair? You have failed me, Executors. Justice shall be met indeed.
And his opponent coming in a little buffed up, and you'll get to see those sexy legs. Heroic Firelands Ragnaros.
Insects! You dare trespass into my domain! Your arrogance will be purged in living flame!
It's only fitting that we pit this titan against himself, as Ragnaros is one of the reasons that raiding and the World of Warcraft community has grown so strong. With everything, a good foundation needs to be laid, and as Ragnaros being the first in-game raid boss in the World of Warcraft community, they started to revel when they heard of this monstrously large fire boss that had right at 1 million health. To top it off, you need 40 gangsters to take him down. The stories of the best guilds in the world battling to finally get that kill, and the loot that the raiders were wearing at the time, made those who had not raided yet drool at the thought of stepping into a raid. I guarantee you that so many vanilla raiders that stepped foot into their first raid had goosebumps all over, had adrenaline flowing through their veins, pumped, ready, wired, and ready to go. I have to say I truly envy those who got to raid current content during vanilla World of Warcraft. Wait a minute, guys, did I just hear the bell for round 1? Yes, I did, and let's get straight into the action. Vanilla Ragnaros is laying his strat all over the face of his future counterpart. Okay, now with bosses in today's setting, the only real preparation you had to have was getting the gear and your burst pots, positioning, cooldown, rotation set up. Vanilla Ragnaros required so much more when having to prepare for his fight, as you had to have 1 to 200 fire resist, and your tanks had to have 300 to 315 fire resist. Your pots in this fight was fire protection pots, and you needed between 1 and 3 fire protection pots during the fight to stay alive. The common position set up for Vanilla Ragnaros was all the melee and close support was positioned on the inner ring while Ragnaros was up, and all the healers and range support was on the secondary ring away from Ragnaros. And all players had to be spread out so that multiple people did not get knocked back and damage from his knockback ability. This fight has two phases, and in the first phase everyone will blow the boss up, and in during phase 2 the raid will have to deal with the 8 Sons of Flames. During phase 1, have your main tanks attack and hold aggro, while all your DPS opens up on the boss. 3 minutes after the pull, he will submerge and his Sons of Flames will come out. Ragnaros will shoot random explosions that knock people in the air, and most of the time you will land in the lava. Just know where your lava exit points are and get back to position. He will also do an AoE knockback that the melee have to run back for every 25 seconds. Only the tanks will stay in melee range for this. 20 seconds before Ragnaros submerges, all of your raid, except for the main tank, should move to the southern tip of the outer ring to be in position to handle the adds when they come out. Once the Sons of the Flames are out, you'll want to make sure that you keep them away from the mana users, as they have an AoE mana burn. You'll want to stun and banish them and kill the adds one by one. You have 1.5 minutes to do so before Rag returns to the fight. Once all the adds are dead, it's back to the boss and you will rinse and repeat until he is dead. Throwing out one final hook to the face of his opponent is that once you summon Vanilla Ragnaros, you only have 2 hours to defeat him. If you do not, then he submerges and you have to wait around 3 hours for Domo to res so that you can summon him again. Take that all over your Cat of Firelands face, my friends. Limited attempts making its first appearance. But wait a minute, Heroic Firelands Ragnaros does not seem to be phased in the least, as he counters with a strategy that would in itself take an entire video alone to go over. Quick breakdown time as he throws a flurry of punches at the face of Ragnaros with his strats. Okay, here we go. Phase 1, healers 55 yards away from Rag, so not to get the punch back and interrupt the melee DPS and tanks max melee range, tank swap mechanic, and watch out for severe smash attack to avoid it, along with the lava waves that it generates and sets off magma traps. If it is going to take it, make sure that you have a slow fall so that you do not take damage. First transition phase, his hammer slams into the ground with there are 8 Sons of the Flame that will appear and make their way to the hammer. If it reaches it, game over, my friends. Stun them and kill them ASAP. Phase 2, group 1 on one side until the Molten Seeds is cast and you run to the other side, pop cooldown, survive the explosion, kill the adds that appear from the Molten Seeds, and do not stand in the engulfing flame section of the room. Split second phase, 8 Sons of the Flames, 2 adds that need to be tanked, kill all but 1 Sons of the Flame ASAP, and then have the last one at very low life, keep it slowed. Then you kill the 2 bag adds that are on the tank and finish off the last Sons of the Flame. Phase 3 coming all at you fast with a Soul Flare Smash and a Engulfing Flames deal with. Stay all the shit on the ground. Now he summons a burning living meteor that chases one target. Once it gets close to him, you're going to knock it back and it'll chase somebody else. The new person kites it until it gets close to him, knock it back. If it gets you, guess what? It's over, my friends. You were dead. Whoop, 10%. Now you got him down. Well, good old Raggy shows off his sexy legs as he climbs out of the lava pool. Now begins what would be one of the most difficult phases of any encounter in all of World of Warcraft history, which I will not go into as this round is over and the winner of round 1 is clearly Heroic Firelands Ragnaros. Round 2 is underway. Hot and heavy into the round comes the most dangerous individual ability from Vanilla Ragnaros in the form of Magma Blast, which Vanilla Rag will only cast once no one is in melee range, throwing out a blast for about 4,000 to 6,000 damage to a random raid member, which will one-shot most anyone in the raid. Now, you may be saying, but this ability exists on most bosses, but the reason I do bring it up is for the sheer size of the room, along with the knockbacks and the transitions, cause this ability to go off quite a lot during progression attempts. Heroic Firelands Ragnaros fires back with Wrath of Ragnaros, which targets a random raid member doing fire damage and knocks them into the air along with anyone within 6-yard radius. This ability can cause unexpected deaths if dealt with incorrectly, not to mention Magma Blast, which is not quite as deadly as vanilla version alone, but coupled with the debuff it places on the tank target with other mechanics makes it deadly as well. Wait a minute, is that the bell I hear? Yes it is, my friends. Walking around with the round 2 victory is Vanilla Ragnaros. Headed back into the action for round 3 is the most dangerous raid-wide damage ability. Vanilla Ragnaros goes on the strike with, wait a minute! Holy shit, Heroic Firelands Ragnaros just pummeled Vanilla Rag with Empowered Sulphurous, which is an ability that Ragnaros uses every 50 seconds in Phase 4 that abuses weapon when he reaches it. Once he reaches a weapon, it's an instant wipe with everyone dead on the ground, broken as they are so close to victory. This ability, along with other mechanics and the damage going out in the phase, was actually a difficult one to deal with, as Ragnaros frequently made it to his weapon. Heroic Firelands Ragnaros walks away with a smirk on his face as he wins this round, with Vanilla Ragnaros having no answer for this raid-wide damage ability. Heroic Firelands Ragnaros is now up 2 rounds to 1 as we head into round 4. Just how rough was Vanilla Ragnaros on the DPS? It actually, mechanically wise, was not bad on the DPS. However, the DPS requirement was huge. The hardest thing that the DPS had to do in this fight was pushing the numbers required to push down Ragnaros, which had DPS for one of the first times not holding back on any of their damage, making the tanks stay on their toes to keep aggro on the boss. This round is looking fairly even, as the DPS in Heroic Firelands Ragnaros have so many mechanics that have to be dealt with, and while on the move for the most part. Once stepping into Phase 4, positioning that the DPS had to have and the defensive cooldowns to survive was immense. The DPS had to push Rag to his death in Phase 4 was not near as punishing as handling all the mechanics. This round is neck and neck, and to decide the winner it looks like, oh my goodness, we actually have a split decision this round. And the winner of round 4 is, wow, it's a draw. That leaves the count 2 rounds for Heroic Firelands Ragnaros and 1 round for Vanilla Ragnaros and 1 tied round. Okay, they are now out of their corners and going at it again. Looks like Vanilla Rag is hanging tough when it comes to the difficulty for the healers in this encounter. Mana for healers really played a huge role in the Vanilla Ragnaros fight, and if just one of the Sons of the Flames got out of position, then you had an entire raid full of heals, which spelled for disaster. Heals in this fight only really had one skill that they would cast to heal, so there was no oh shit and I have to top this person off. Healers had to spam and make sure their heals was on the targets that absolutely needed it. If healers were over healing, you were in for a bad time, very bad time. Heroic Firelands Ragnaros was no slouch when it came to healer difficulty, and when Phase 4 hit, there has never been more stressed healers ever in an encounter than the last phase of Heroic Ragnaros. The amount of moving required and the damage going out, I'm sure, caused many of healers to pull their hair out during this part of the encounter, which is leaving you with, you guessed it, Heroic Firelands Ragnaros walking away with round number 5. Vanilla Ragnaros is in serious trouble if he is going to make a comeback in this fight, as he is now down 3 rounds to 1 and with 1 tied round. Vanilla Ragnaros needs this round bad, and it looks like he is putting on a strong case for this round as he slams in with something that tanks now know nothing about, and that is aggro. Yep, aggro was a thing, and with the amount of pushback and damage and the DPS had to do in the fight, one of the most stressful fights in MC Vanilla for tanks was, you guessed it, Rag. If your tanks were weak in this encounter and not positioned just right, people would start dropping like it's hot as they were getting magma blasts all over their faces. And it looks like Heroic Firelands Ragnaros is reeling a bit behind in this round as the tank swap mechanics that have come commonplace in raid encounters and the lack of aggro. This is all about positioning the boss correctly in Phase 4 and staying alive, which is something that tanks are really doing second nature anyways. Now the mechanics did make this part of the fight hard for tanks, however not having to worry about someone ripping aggro off of you just takes a little bit of that difficulty curve of tanking away. Now don't get me wrong, there are a lot of new encounters that are really difficult for tanks, and Phase 4 Ragnaros was one of them, but it looks to me like Vanilla Ragnaros is taking this round. What a thrilling battle we have so far, my friends, and it looks like it's coming down to the last round. 3 rounds to Heroic Firelands Ragnaros, and 2 rounds to Vanilla Ragnaros, and 1 tied up round. I have to tell you, it looks like Vanilla Ragnaros is starting to fade as we begin this last round, and Heroic Firelands Ragnaros comes out with everything he has, and ladies and gentlemen, it looks like it's over. Heroic Firelands Rag has just too much in the mechanics department for Vanilla Rag to keep up. And down goes Vanilla Rag. It's over. It's over. The winner of this fight, your Cataclysm Heroic Firelands Ragnaros. What a fight, ladies and gentlemen. What a fight. What a fight it has been. A lot closer than I expected, to be honest with you. Now, of course, Heroic Firelands Ragnaros has more mechanics than Vanilla Ragnaros does, but it's the sheer difference in the amount of mechanics that is staggering, and the sheer amount of attempts that it took for the World First Guilds to get their heads wrapped around those mechanics. I just implore you to go print off a strat for Vanilla Ragnaros, and then a strat for normal / Heroic Ragnaros, and I guarantee you're going to have a pamphlet to a book comparison. The only reason that Vanilla Ragnaros took so long to down compared to Heroic Firelands Ragnaros was the limited attempts mechanics that there was. But a fitting champion we have, as I believe he's one of the toughest World of Warcraft bosses ever put out. I think the pull count was down to around the 600s for the world first kill. Very fitting for the first part of this series, the raid battles of World of Warcraft history. If you disagree with me, which I'm sure there are some of you that will, or many of you that will, then leave a comment in the section below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, then give it a like and share. Subscribe to help me put out more content for you guys. Have suggestions for future raid battles of World of Warcraft history that you would like to see, then leave them in the comments section below, or email me at thewowbreakdown@gmail.com, and see you again next time, guys.
Insects! You dare trespass into my domain! Your arrogance will be purged in living flame!